Good afternoon, coming to you live from Nasdaq's global headquarters in Lower Manhattan. Welcome to a special edition of Nasdaq Advisory Live, brought to you by Nasdaq Corporate Solutions. I'm your host, Will Briganti, and joining me as my guest is Miles Clouston. Miles, welcome. Great to have you back.
Thanks, great to be back.
Happy Friday. We're coming to you live on a Friday. Typically we're on Thursdays, but we're doing it a day later because Miles and I and the rest of the Nasdaq Corporate Solutions team just got back from the National Investor Relations Institute Annual Conference, which took place in Orlando, Florida. It was a terrific event. Miles, what did you think?
I thought it was a great event. I think there was a lot of interesting topics, and especially there's so much going on, not just in the investor relations space, but in general in the global markets. So a lot of the interesting topics were around the rise of active versus passive investing.
Right.
And it dovetails nicely into a lot of the conversation around activism that we're seeing.
Yeah,
there was also a lot of buzz and chat around MiFID II, which is the EU regulation that's going to take effect in January of next year,
right.
and more importantly, how there's going to be certain spillover effect into the U.S. markets, and how investor relations officers should be thinking about preparing for that, as there's probably going to be additional burden put on them around investor targeting, and just how they look to engage with the buy-side community and sell-side community.
That's true. That's a very good point. So for all of our viewers, Nasdaq is taking a very analytical approach to how MiFID II will impact our entire business. So for the investor relations community that are watching, be sure to contact either your mid-analyst or your advisory services analyst for more detail on MiFID II and how that could impact your company specifically. Let's switch gears a little bit to the U.S.
Right.
Obviously, next week, all eyes will be on the U.S. Federal Reserve Board. We've got the FOMC meeting on Wednesday and Thursday with some of the minutes being announced.
Yes.
What's your prediction for Ms. Yellen?
The prediction in the street is highly expecting that we'll see a rate hike next week. It's pretty much baked in. So the question thereafter is, what will the language be, as we're still pretty much expecting another rate hike on top of that in Q3 sometime. And then also the Fed has been posturing around perhaps doing looking at the balance sheet and reducing it. It's around 4.5 trillion now, so they would like to kind of reduce it a little bit by letting some of the MBS just kind of float off and not kind of renew those MBS investments,
Sure.
mortgage-backed security investments. So, we are expecting the rates to rise next week.
And I know institutional and retail investors are looking, obviously, at the unemployment rate or the employment rate in the U.S.,
Yes.
which looks to be near full at this point. What other factors does the Federal Reserve Board have to take into account as they meet next week?
Yeah, so for the most part, the employment numbers are looking good, even though we had a recent week. One number certainly doesn't make a trend. Overall, we're right around full employment, which is the target for the Fed. Inflation is really going to be a big one because we're still kind of hovering below the 2% target that they're looking at. And then GDP was soft in Q1, around, I think it was around 1.2%. Overall projections for the balance of the year around 2 to 2.25% for GDP. So, I think that will certainly take a lot of focus, and then everything else that we're seeing geopolitically around the world will be factored in. The Fed has stated, not more recently, but in the past, that global risks are certainly things that they pay close attention to.
Great. Well, Miles, I really appreciate that insight. Good to get your recap from NIRI and then also a forecast into next week's FOMC meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Will.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Miles Clouston. He's an advisory services director here at Nasdaq Corporate Solutions. For more information about Nasdaq Advisory Services, be sure to follow our corporate blog, which Miles and the rest of the team contribute to. That's at business.nasdaq.com, and you can also follow us over on Twitter. That's at MyCorpSolutions. And for more information on MiFID II, be sure to stay tuned to this channel because we're going to be producing a lot more video and a lot more content about that specific topic in the coming months. For now, we're going to leave it there. Have a great weekend, and we'll look forward to seeing you back next week. Thank you. Thank you, Miles.
Thank you.